Hello and welcome back to the podcast. For those of you who are new around here, my name is Ruth and I started this podcast to amplify the voices of women in leadership, to talk about what we do beyond the school gate, the good, the bad and the funny. And today I'm going to just dive straight on in, jealousy. Put that out there, jealousy. Jealousy amongst women. So, I'm an 80s baby. So my narrative has always been, of course there's jealousy around between friendship groups. Of course women are jealous of each other. And when I say narrative, that's what I grew up hearing, was that other women were your competition, and that if she's doing better than you, she's changed, she thinks she's all that. All of this negative narrative about somebody that may be doing well, and seeing a lot of women trying to pull other women down and trying to stop somebody else's growth, or which is really interesting. But now what I'm seeing is different narratives. One is, though, not that dissimilar to that 80s narrative, which is do it, like conflict. Maybe they call it, what do they call it? Gaslighting, maybe? I don't know. But it's like one narrative that will say, oh, go for it, do it. What's stopping you? No one's going to come and give it to you. No one's going to hold you back. You're getting in your own way. Go for it. Yay, woohoo. That girl power kind of, you've got this vibe. But then it's quickly followed up with a, but I'm doing this and I'm an expert. Right? So it feels a little bit like do it, don't do it. Or do it, but don't be better than me. And I've actually got a story on, it's a reel on Instagram, where it's around people want you to do well, but they don't want you to do better than them. I was heartbroken when I read the narrative under that reel. If you haven't seen it, go have a look at BTSG podcast on Instagram. I was actually heartbroken because everybody was like, yeah, that's true. First and foremost, I'd never heard of that. So then when I heard of it and I was asking people, like, is this a thing? People were like, well, yeah. And one, I felt a bit like, oh, where have I been? I've been under a rock, clearly. But then I felt really, really sad, because you want somebody to do well, but with a caveat. Surely you want them to do well or you don't. Like, surely, like, if I'm bad mind, I don't want you to do well. But if I'm a normal human being, I want you to do fantastically well. So I just think that's really interesting. So that 80s narrative, and then a bit of a do well but don't do better than me narrative. And then there's the whole kind of girl boss, do your thing. And there's all of these kind of different narratives and variations out there. So when I was preparing for this podcast episode, I was just reflecting back on, it's so interesting how since kind of growing up, 80s, late 80s, 90s, that was the narrative. There's still a little bit of it now, but there's a lot more women bringing women up. So like this podcast, for example, I've had a couple of guests on the podcast as well that have started brands and communities that is all about empowering women and the voices of women. And there's this whole movement happening as well. But it's just, I feel like overall we are progressing and we are going in a direction that is ultimately really positive. But then there are these little pockets of do well but not too well. So when I was thinking about jealousy, I was thinking about when I was younger, and I don't know if I experienced, I can't recall a time that I experienced jealousy of another woman. I did of my brothers, because they could do whatever they wanted, but me, being the youngest and the only girl, there was a different set of rules. So I do remember feeling a lot of jealousy. A lot, maybe that's a bit strong. I do remember feeling jealousy when I was younger and when I was growing up. But it was mainly around how the boys could do what they want and I couldn't. And that's a whole nother podcast in itself. But I never remember feeling that jealousy towards my friends. And I think I'm not sitting here saying I'm holier than thou. I'm sitting here saying that I don't think I cared. If I'm honest, I don't think I was watching anybody else that deep and cared what they were doing. Like I was quite youngest child. I was quite selfish, living my own life. I just cared about me, what was in it for me, and my life. And it's only as I've got older, I'm a lot more empathetic and caring and a nice human being. But when I was a kid, I was savage. I didn't care. So I didn't care about what you were doing, which meant I wasn't jealous. And then I read this thing. I was reading a book, and one of the characters was saying that you can't be jealous of something that you don't want. And I think that's probably why I didn't experience it when I was growing up and when I was a teenager, because I didn't know what I wanted. So one, I didn't know what I wanted, and two, I literally could care less what other people were doing. So I think there was no space in my brain for jealousy, if that makes sense. But if you don't want something and somebody else has it, how can that make me jealous? That's the kind of conundrum that's going around in my head. Why would I care? Like I'm trying to think what somebody's done or got that I don't want. I'm not gonna throw shade because don't need to. But if you've got something that I don't want that, so I'm not gonna look at it and be like, I'm jealous of that. I'll be like, oh my god, that makes you so happy. That's so cool. Like that's literally it. And if somebody has something that I want or is doing something that I also want to do or aspire to do, surely we should be looking at that person saying, that's fantastic. How do I learn? How do I grow? How did you get there? What can I do to get there? What steps can I take to also get there? How can I put my backside into gear to get there? If somebody else has done it, then you can see that it can be done. So if she's done it and I want to get there, I want to learn, grow and develop and take everything that I can from her that feels authentic with who I am. I'm not cloning the person, but take the bits from her and take the lessons from her and oh my gosh, she explains it so well. I get it now. It's a different business, but I get what she's saying. And have those people around you that can help you move forward towards your goal. I look at it as I've got a mini board. A lot of the people that surround me are 99.9% of the people that surround me have a skill set that's completely different to mine, be it in biotech or clinical services, a psychologist, politics, CEO, like all of these different things, because I want to learn and grow from them. Right, and then they challenge me, and then they can hold me accountable for my goals and all of that stuff. So I don't see people as like the competition. Like your only competition is you're competing with yourself. There's always going to be someone that's better than you in the world, boo. Always, 100%. You need to be better than yourself. You need to be better than what you were yesterday. That's what you need to be focusing on, because you're gonna constantly disappoint yourself. Surely you're going to be looking at that person, oh, they're better than me, I'm not good enough. And would you then stop trying? Or you're always going to feel like I'm not good enough. So compete with yourself. So when I think about jealousy, I think that's probably the world that I've now moved into, from being a child and not really caring about what other people were doing, not knowing where I wanted to go, so I wasn't jealous because I didn't know if I wanted to go there either. More so to a place of, how do we as a community use that? I don't like the word jealousy because I do think it has negative connotations, but this whole episode is about jealousy, so we're going to stick with jealousy. I just think you can use it as like a fire in your belly to do better. How can I do better? How can I do more? And think of that twinge that you might get of jealousy, where you just feel a bit like, oh, I want to do that. Think about it as if they're doing it, I can also do it. That's fantastic, because I'm seeing somebody actually do it. This is brilliant. Use it as a fire in your belly to start up your engine and to start that energy and to start taking action to what you want to do. People aren't going to come and do it for you, and the person that you're looking at possibly feeling a little bit jealous or a bit envious or whatever, nobody came in, for the most part, did it or gave it to them. Like, a lot of people have grafted, especially in this day and age, to get to where they are. So I just think that use it as a fire to aspire to be more, and use it as an opportunity to be curious. I've definitely found that people are really generous with their time when you ask questions. I think there's so many people that I've met through doing the podcast, moving to Australia, having no network, no social capital, either met them online or stalked them on LinkedIn, or met through networks or through friends, or just randomly at a trampoline park and have now become friends. People are really generous with their time. Nobody's ever, when I've said to them, oh my gosh, you do this business, like that's so cool, like, and I've asked curious questions, no one's ever gate kept and been like, no, I'm not going to talk about that, or I'm not going to give you information, or no thanks, don't really fancy going out for coffee. Like, people are generous with their time, and for the most part want to talk about what they've done and what they're doing. So I also do that. I give people my time. There's a few people that have asked for specific things from me, and I'm generous with my time. One of those things, a bit of a teaser, is I won't say what it is, but there's a handful of people that have asked me about this thing or to do this thing, and I've been generous over the last 5 years. It's probably been about 8 people over the last 5 years, and I've been super generous with my time in that particular space. But oh my god, I feel like one of those people saying there's something coming but I can't talk about it, but there's something coming, I can talk about it, but I don't want to yet because I'm not ready. And sometimes you have to grind in silence and just do your thing until you're ready. And part of the not being ready is not being ready from a marketing perspective, but the other thing is not being ready. I'm scared, so I'm not even gonna lie, I'm a little bit shook over here. But being generous with your time, and I think that I've done that over the last 5 years since being in Australia, and that has now led to that's actually an area of business I want to take the podcast into, because people have asked me for this thing or to do this thing. And it's not just one or two, and it happened also in the UK, and I've been super generous with my time. But I've actually identified that that can now link into a business opportunity for the podcast. So that's kind of shifting gear a little bit. So you never know, by being curious and asking people questions and engaging with people and being generous with your time, you don't know where that can lead you. That's led me massively to some really great mentors, and that's led me massively to some really great friendships, and also led me to some amazing employment opportunities. That approach, looking at somebody and how they conduct themselves and what they do and how they operate, and developing those friendships, actually has led me right now to my dream job. And I know it sounds really cheesy, but I'm actually in my dream job with great people that are doing amazing things for an amazing purpose. And I just think that if that person hadn't been generous with their time and answered all my curious questions, and I hadn't been brave and reached out at that person, or I felt jealousy and was like, oh, I don't want to engage with them. I looked at this person, I just thought, your vibe is a vibe. You look like you've got a pure heart. You're doing amazing stuff. I'm going to reach out to you because your energy is attracting me. If I didn't do that, one, I feel like I've got a great friend in that person now. And two, it's also led me to my 9-to-5 job that I have now, which I'm absolutely loving. So I think that let's use that as an opportunity to take action. Let's use that as an opportunity, as a fire in our belly, to progress onto something else. And you can learn things, and you can take things from other people, and you can leave the bits that don't align with you or don't feel authentic as to who you are. But I think the more exposure you get to people, and the more exposure you get to a variety of people, the more the bits that you can kind of cherry pick, and then you continue to grow, learn and develop. I never want to be that person that's afraid of making a mistake because I judged that person, or there was jealousy of this person, so I didn't bother engage with them because I was jealous. But that's a missed learning opportunity. The only person you should be competing with is yourself, and trying to be the best version of yourself that you can be. So comment down below, what are your thoughts on jealousy? Have you experienced jealousy? Have you experienced jealousy towards you? That's an interesting question. And how did you deal with that? So thanks again for listening, and I shall see you guys on the next one.